Hello and thanks once again for taking the time to download and listen to our podcast from CelticUnderground.net. Last podcast was on the back of a disaster. This certainly isn't. This is me, Harry Brady, on the Celtic Underground podcast. I hope you're enjoying the new music on the Celtic Underground podcast. This is the Easy Signals. Playing in the background is Believe in You. There'll be more at the end with Spanish James and In My Best Fluff Freeman style, open brackets, that is, close brackets, true. There'll be links to their YouTube site and Facebook and how to buy their album on Amazon on the website. So if you want to get your new music on the podcast, just email podcasts, that's plural, podcast plural, at celticunderground.net and you'll get your new music on. Anyway, last time on the podcast we had Jack Lyons and it was supposed to be a good, happy, chatty, brief comment on playing part-timers from Gibraltar and then talking about the way Brendan Rodgers might set up the team. Didn't quite go that way, so I thought I'd get Jack back on to talk in a more positive vein about the club and the team. And after today's result, which was excellent, 3,000 miles away to get a 1-1 draw with a team who played in the group stages of the Champions League last season, the highest or second highest seeded team that we could have played, to get a draw away from home was an excellent performance and hopefully we can take it through. So, Jack's on the podcast. There'll be more at the other side of his chat. This is me, Harry Brady, with him, Jack Lyons. Jack, are you in a better mood than last time we spoke?
I'd have to say I am, yeah. It's a much more pleasing note to record a podcast.
It certainly is. I don't want to start at the end with the results, so we'll start off where the Celtic online community usually start, which is the first thing they normally do is, not all, the first thing they do is then say, I wouldn't have picked that team. They don't then say what team they would have picked, just so that they can then retweet themselves at the end of the game and say, see, I told you. Yeah. So, what did you make of the team?
It was what I had expected, really. I mean, on the back of the games that we played against Lincoln and the two friendlies against Wolfsburg and Leicester, that was the shape that it pointed towards. I thought maybe Yanko might play, either on the right instead of Roberts, just because of we're away in Europe.
Yep,
and I thought that
a bit more defensive.
Yeah, and I thought that he might play in the back three because he started in the back three on Saturday against Leicester. So I thought he might either come in, and he might either come in for Roberts on the right, or he might play in the back three, and that would maybe say that Effie or O'Connell might not start. But I mean, about half an hour before the teams came out, I actually posted what I thought the team would be, and it was the exact same.
I thought you did a grand job there. I noticed that. So if we get on to the hipster part of the team, so Brendan appears to be employing this tactic of it's a back three when we're going forward and a back four when we're defending.
Yep.
So do you want to explain how that works?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite a common thing. Maybe we haven't seen it so much in Scotland here, but kind of one formation for defending, one formation for attacking is quite a common thing. A good example would be the Real Madrid team that won the European Cup under Ancelotti, and they played a 4-4-2 defensively, and a 4-3-3 in attack. That's quite a well-known example. But the idea basically is that the players it functions around the players on the at fullback and on the right and left of midfield. If you look at it from a 4-4-2, where basically it plays to the strengths. So while Tierney is more comfortable going up the pitch, Lustig's strengths are defensively. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, while Armstrong prefers to come inside and play in the middle of the pitch, Roberts is at his best on the wing. And what that does is it creates a shape where you've got a 3-5-2 formation where Lustig comes in and forms a back three with the centre backs. Tierney acts like a wing back. And it's quite lopsided or asymmetrical, but those kind of formations actually tend to work better than sort of mirror image formations, just because it asks more questions of the defence, the opposition even.
It strikes me that, you're more the expert than me, it strikes me that if you're doing that, then the more tactically astute players in your team might need to be the guy on the left and the guy on the right of the back 3/4. Because Lustig's got to be permanently switched on to the fact that sometimes he's a right back and sometimes he's the right of a three. And Tierney's got to be switched on more so than other parts of the team about when he's to be up and when he's to be tucking back in as a left back.
Yeah. It's actually quite what's people generally, when you think of attacking fullbacks, and the kind of standard idea is that if one goes up, one sits. And that's almost what it is, except it's just that it's always Tierney up and it's always Lustig sitting. But like you say, it's important that, you know, the whole idea of shifting into a three is that it compensates for Tierney going so far up. So yeah, it is a tough double role for them, but it's one of these things where I always thought, when I looked at it and I thought, that just looks like Rodgers has gone, this is roughly the team I want to play, and then the guys that he's got there, he's just played to their strengths. And it's just happened that it gets a nice balance. So it's convenient that Armstrong's strengths are coming inside, Tierney's strengths are coming up on the left-hand side, so you've still got the width. That's a nice balance. And the same on the other side, where Roberts likes to stay out in the wing. Lustig sits a bit deeper, so you've still got the width without, you know, losing anything defensively.
Lustig, I've felt for some time, he's not a centre-half. I don't quite think he's a full right back. I actually think the right of a three suits Lustig.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm like, maybe similar to you, I'm not entirely convinced by him, but the role that he's playing in at the moment is the best role for him. From what I've seen, especially when you saw last year, it just looked so slow. And for a right back, it just wasn't ideal, but the sort of back four / back three, right back / right centre back position is ideal for him.
The other thing is, you touched on Janko there. I understand that Brendan Rodgers sees a potential player in Janko and thinks he's someone that he could turn into something. Can you see that? Yeah.
Well, he's still very raw, is probably the term that you can use. You know, he's got all the physical attributes. He does need a bit of fine-tuning, technically. But I would actually say something similar for Tierney. Tierney's maybe got more defensive capabilities, but Tierney is a good core package, but that still needs work, and Janko is the same thing, really. There's definitely potential there, especially at such a young age, and there's no... I mean, I remember when Manchester United let him go to us, and there was a lot of Man United fans who, you know, watched the under-21s, and they said, I can't believe we're letting him go. You know, he's a standout, and there was some good players in that team, so he's obviously got a level of talent there.
He's a better player than Tyler Blackett.
Yeah. I don't think that's a challenge.
Yeah, so we were obviously on to our 75th and 76th choice centre-backs for the game, so We touched on the last podcast about Effie Ambrose is not as bad as everybody says. There's a player in there trying to get out. So we had O'Connell and Ambrose as the other people within the back system. Pretty obvious that there was limited options for the manager. What were your thoughts when you saw that they were playing?
I thought that was the best. That was the best approach. You can always have put Yanko into that back three and maybe shifted Lustig across, but ultimately those were the Lustig, Ambrose and O'Connell were the three guys available that were most suited to playing in the back three, and so it was a good choice from the manager. I thought not to push someone out of position, Yanko into a back three, just to not play either the young guy or the fall guy.
Okay, so after those guys, we then have middle of the park where Brown, McGregor, and obviously I'm not exactly picking formations, but Brown, McGregor, Armstrong, and Roberts. Your thoughts on those when you saw the team when you saw the team being picked? Your thoughts on them?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you just identified it was the team you picked, so I'm sure you were comfortable when you saw that was.
Yeah, it was. I mean, one of my biggest fears was that having came on against Leicester, that he was going to rush Johansson back into the team and maybe drop McGregor or Armstrong, and he didn't do that, and I was pleased because I think Brown, Armstrong, McGregor is a nice balance. They've all got different strengths. They accommodate each other's weaknesses. So I'm a big fan. I think that's probably the best midfield three that we've got within the squad just now. So I was quite pleased with that. And Roberts obviously has been good recently. So I was pleased to see him.
And then Dembele and Griffiths. I mean, you're talking about various things, and obviously you predicted the team would be what it was, but. Did you think there was a possibility we'd go with a one up front instead of the two?
I thought maybe that there was a possibility that if he put Yanko in Roberts' position, that he might drop one and play Roberts as the closest player to one. So maybe Roberts just off Griffiths, something like that. But as I said, that was an option. But I think considering the team that's played together against Leicester, against Wolfsburg. This is pretty much the natural fit. The lineup that we got was pretty much what was to be expected.
So, game starts. What were your initial impressions of the way the team was playing?
First 15 minutes, I thought was it was cagey. It was one of those situations where nobody was really, nobody was hugely chuffed with what they were doing, neither side, but both were quite comfortable in the situation that it was. We had, most of the possession. I think that was 15 minutes. We had 65% possession. We were playing the ball. We weren't really creating much and getting in behind them or into dangerous positions much, but we weren't affording them too many opportunities to attack us either. And for them, they were keeping us kind of arm's length. We had the ball, but they never really felt like their goal was in danger either. So it was one of those games, the start to the game where neither's really pushing for anything, but everybody's kind of happy. So
then came their goal.
Yeah.
So talk me through, from my perspective, it looked like, I can't even remember how they got the corner. I saw somebody say it was a FA sclaffed or whatever. But I can't remember how they got the corner. But when the corner came in, my perception was O'Connell was at fault because not only was he nearest the man, so he should have been blocking the guy's run, but whether it was man for man or zonal doesn't really matter, because whether it was man for man, it was O'Connell's man. If it's zone, if it's a mixture of whatever, if it's zonal, it's O'Connell's zone.
Yeah.
So either way, it was O'Connell at fault.
Yeah, he's made the mistake, and obviously not ideal. But I thought, and when
I then thought Gordon flapped at it, and if a goalkeeper's going to come
Yeah, he's got to take it, because otherwise there's a big empty goal there. Yeah. And maybe touch on this at some point, but Gordon actually maybe took the most flack for it, certainly on Twitter and things like that. Maybe that's just O'Connell's just a young guy, and so a mistake's kind of going to be expected, or at least people are going to not be so harsh on him for it. But Gordon is taking a lot of criticism, and to be fair, it's not unfair, because you think that he's made quite a lot of mistakes, really, especially in Europe. When you look back to last season, there was the one away in Fenerbahce, where he just runs right over the ball, and the ball, he just passes it into an empty net. There's one maybe away to Ajax, I think. Yeah, the free kick, and it just came through all the bodies and just went straight in. So I think he's come in for a lot of criticism, and that seemed to be who was taking the majority of the blame tonight. Or today even.
Yeah, I do think sometimes it's bad decision making from him. It's almost as if he's sitting there and thinking, I'm going to have to go for one of these crosses one of these days. And then just picks one randomly to go for.
Yeah, and it's not the best one.
Yeah.
It's not the best one. Yeah, that could be what it is. And I think, if we're talking more generally, as opposed to just the game, I do think that maybe not this season, but if we're looking towards next season, that they might look to bring in another goalkeeper, because I remember when Rodgers went, when Swansea got promoted, and he signed Michel Vorm from Holland, and he said, one of the things about the guy is he's so good with the ball at his feet, and that's really important to our system, and Gordon's distribution is less than wonderful. So if you include the fact that there's this element of he's been making mistakes and people aren't necessarily 100% convinced, you've got that on top of that, where maybe his distribution isn't what Rodgers would like from a goalkeeper.
Yeah. So what was... Yeah, so I've said, and you've sort of agreed with me, so your ideas on what went wrong at the goal?
Yeah, I think O'Connell has to do better. I saw somebody maybe say that Dembele, he's in a position to attack, and I think one or two corners after that, he came out and the ball went into a similar area, and Dembele came out and cleared it. But O'Connell probably it's in his area, so he should do better. Gordon as well, if he's going to come out, he's going to have to be a bit more convincing than that. Okay,
so after we lost the goal, what was your perception of how the game went from there?
If you look from about the goal time, which was 15, 20 minutes, up until about an hour, it seemed like we would get into some decent positions, but we seemed to be impatient. Whereas before, in the first 15 minutes, like I said, we were passing the ball and we maybe weren't creating much, but we didn't let them necessarily have much either. But we started, Gordon in particular, and Lustig as well, would both hit long balls instead of maybe just passing it to Ambrose or O'Connell. And what that ended up doing was that by half time the possession was about 50-50, and they just had so many more opportunities to attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't really get much from their attacks. It was mostly, they would win corners and throw-ins and things like that, but they had much more in that period of time, just because they had much more of the ball, and so they had more chances to go on and attack us. So that was kind of, I wasn't hugely pleased with that. It was a bit better after half time. Obviously, maybe Rodgers has just said, let's be a bit more patient, something like that. But it was it seemed like rushed, and that could just be that as time goes on, Rodgers' philosophy will work its way into the team more, but it got a bit rushed at times, especially after the goal, up until about the hour mark, which I think that was quite a big change point for the game.
I mean, all through the game, I didn't think they knew how to cope with Patrick Roberts.
No.
Their only tactic to cope with Patrick Roberts seemed to be to kick him, and the referee never really did anything about it. I mean, how many times you'd have thought with the accumulation of fouls, eventually one of them would have got a booking.
Yeah, and it seemed to be the same guy usually, because he was being man marked for especially the first hour, but for the majority of the game, it was being man-marked by their kind of left wing-back. The shape that they had was like a bit of a 3-5-2 kind of thing themselves, or 5-3-2 if you like. So their left wing-back was quite tight on Roberts pretty much the whole game, and it was mostly him. And I mean, I was surprised, or I thought that he should have had a yellow card at least anyway, and the amount of fouls that he committed on Roberts in particular. But
one thing I never touched on that happened in the first half, just after the goal. Did you think it was a penalty?
Well,
did we never get to see again?
I know we've got one shot of it, and it's been clipped and posted on Twitter, but it's hard to tell. Like you say, you've got one angle. We're never going to see it again. It looked like one of those where it could either be Dembele has gone through, realised he's lost the ball and gone down, but it could equally be that the boys pulled him down. But you can't really see it from the angle.
From the clip that the person put on Twitter, that, as you say, you're basically trying to replay 2 seconds over and over again to try and get a view on it. But it looked to me as if the guy was sort of leaning into Dembele, and the problem for the defender, number 5, whatever his name was that Dembele's pace was taking him away. So the guy's leaning in, Dembele moves away, the guy then sort of falls over, and as he falls over, his arm is around Dembele's leg and pulls it away from him.
Yeah. Like I say, it's no, particularly even on the clip, it's not great footage, and obviously it's just a standard angle. But if we'd seen it from another angle, I wouldn't have been at all surprised if he had been fouled. But it's hard to say from what we had, any level of assured.
Now, second half, I'm going to have to rely on you. You've obviously talked about things changing in the hour a lot more than me, because there's 2 things. I hate watching games on the television. I'm dreadful watching games on the television. So European away games just get worse. As the game goes on, it gets worse for me. Secondly, I'm watching it in the office through my Kodi that's we've got an Amazon Fire Stick on our TV in the office. I program that in, and because we're based in the city centre, we've got crap Wi-Fi. So it really started to drop off in the second half, and I wasn't going out of my way to reboot it because I don't like watching games on the television anyway. So what was it that changed in the hour, Mark? You said things changed about an hour.
Well, he made a substitution, and at the time when he made it, I thought it was bizarre, because he took off Dembele and he brought on Beaton, and I was thinking, we've kind of got to get a goal here, because 1-0 is not a good score. If they come and score 1, then we need 3 at Celtic Park. So I thought we need a goal. And when he took off a striker and brought on, a defensive midfielder, I was quite taken aback. But, and like you, the quality of picture that I had maybe wasn't the best, and I would buffer and things like that. But I got a chance to go back and look at the game again after Beaton came on, and it was actually a really intelligent substitution from Rodgers, because the problem early on was that they were letting us have the ball in the back 3, but they did well at shutting off any options into Brown, McGregor and Armstrong, and Tierney and Roberts were marked quite tight, so anytime they would get the ball, there was someone on them straight away, and it was tough for them to get turned round and get into their final third and create opportunities. They looked like they were really well organised to play against us. So if you imagine, and I find this a bit harder to explain without graphics, I'll maybe post some on Twitter after, so that if anyone's listening and they don't really understand my point, then they can see it, and that's a bit easier.
Why do you tell people to get their salt and pepper points out of the cupboard and explain to them what they should be doing?
Yeah, so their shape was quite, it reminded me of Martin O'Neill's Celtic, actually. It was like a back 3, 2 wing backs, 2 holding midfield players, an attacking midfielder, and then 2 strikers. And the 2 strikers, well managed, Lustig on the right and O'Connell on the left. And Ambrose was only really passing to O'Connell and Lustig, and then those guys were the ones that were to go and do something. But the 2 guys that it was a 2 against 3, and Ambrose wasn't really doing anything, so they only had 2 guys to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did when he brought Beaton on was he switched to a 4-5-1 formation, and he had Ambrose and O'Connell, and then Tierney at left back and Lustig at right back. Beaton just in front of the defence, Brown and McGregor further up, and then Armstrong, and then Forrest come on for Armstrong on the left and Roberts on the right. But what that did was, instead of having two guys, basically two guys, Lustig and O'Connell, to deal with, bringing the ball out, they then had four, because Ambrose had more options from a kind of less central position. He could come at it from an angle. O'Connell could do the same. And then the fullbacks were getting the ball deep and moving up. So they went from having 2-on-2 almost to having 2-on-4. And what that did was it allowed us to draw them in. It was one just straight after Beaton come on. Lustig had the ball. One of their strikers pressed him. He passed it into Ambrose. The second striker pressed him. And then Ambrose just put it across to O'Connell. And we just came right up the pitch on the left side, and it was totally open. And that was just something that we couldn't really do. And the other thing that the substitution did was, because if you think of the 3-5-2 in possession, there's only really one guy on each wing.
Mm-hmm.
And they controlled the middle quite well defensively. So we had one guy in each wing. Most of our attacks were going down the wings. But because we only had one guy, it was 1-on-1. We weren't really getting much. But when he went to the 4-5-1, he had two on each wing. And effectively, we had a 2 versus 1, because they only had one wing back on each side, and we had a full back and a winger. So all of our attacks were going down the wings, and all of a sudden we had an advantage down the wings. We could get out, we could play out from the back, as I said, in the kind of 4-against-2 situation, much easier. And then when we were getting up, we had more threat on their wings, because we had guys supporting. Instead of just Tierney and just Roberts, it was Tierney and Forrest, and then Lustig and Roberts on the right hand side.
So actually, although it was a forward going off and a central midfielder going on, it gave more variety to our play. Is that basically the gist of it?
And not even more variety. It just
or more options to the player on the ball.
It gave us more ways to exploit their shape. Their shape that they played was perfect to set up against our 3-5-2 in attack. Mm-hmm. But we shifted their players without even, it just poses different problems, a back four and a back three. And because they controlled the middle, we wanted to play through the middle, but they controlled it well. But when we changed the formation, it allowed us to use the wings more effectively, because we had extra players there.
And then there was our goal. Now, as I've said earlier, I've been going to many times. I've been going to football now since the early 70s. And one of the things that really, it riles me for two reasons. I don't understand why it's not a foul when, from about 10 yards from the goal line, a defender is allowed to shepherd the ball out of the park and make no attempt to play the ball. I know there's this cock and bull about, but he's within playing distance of the ball. All teams do it, so this isn't an anti-Celtic thing. Defenders, just stop, just block off the defender like some sort of guard in basketball or American football until the ball goes off. So that annoys me. Secondly, what annoys me, and it annoys me when Celtic players are doing this, when the attacking player attempting to get this ball, which is running out of the park, foul, just runs into the back of the defender and gets a foul, and the ball's up the park. Roberts did something that all my life I've been sitting wondering why attacking players don't do this. The ball is going in a straight line. Just run round the defender and get the other side of it and knock it back.
Yeah. And generally you see that when guys do that the better players will realise where they've gone, and then they'll just step into the space because the guy's now off the pitch. But the first reaction I thought when I saw the replay was, if that was Ambrose, people would have an absolute meltdown at the defender there, because to lose the ball in that situation, Roberts isn't exactly a huge guy, so all he's done really is just run round him and then keep it in play, and then the guy's just totally not expected it.
Yeah, the guy's just been doing that defender thing of, I'm just going to watch the ball go in a straight line and I'm going to run in a straight line behind it. And as you say, Roberts just being fast, has just run round him and thought, if I get to the byline before the ball, I can play this back.
Yeah, and that was it. And like I said, if it was from their point of view, that's awful defending. But it's one of those situations where you think, if you're Astana, you're thinking, we were 1-0 up, and that is a ridiculous goal. It was an aimless long ball from Tierney. It's going out of play. The guy just doesn't defend it well, and then all of a sudden, one each, and the tie's totally different.
The other thing is, the keeper seemed to be completely wrong-footed. Again, only seen it from one angle. But Griffiths obviously hits at the keeper's near post, and the keeper just drops down on one knee, and the ball goes in the back of the net.
Yeah, no, I thought that at the time. I wasn't like you said. The replays we have for this game have not been excellent, but it looked like it didn't like just go in, right in the corner. It looked like it was semi-central.
Yeah.
And yet the goalkeeper never saved it, and it was like you say. It looks as if the keeper just thinks he's going to shoot across him, and he just comes to the near post, and he's totally wrong-footed.
But one, he's just fantastic. It just changes everything about that tie. As you say, worst case scenario, they scored first at Celtic Park. It's not a massive panic.
No. What it does is we were in a situation where we could win. If it was 1-0, we could win the game at Celtic Park and be eliminated easily. We could win 2-1 and get knocked out. But that just, if we win, we go through. That gives us that. Also, we have 0-0. If it's 0-0, we go through.
Yeah.
So we've now gone from a position where we could win the game and be knocked out to where we can now draw the game and go through. So it totally changes the complexion of the tie. And even when it was 1-0, I was saying we should go for it because 2-1 is much better than 1-0.
Yep.
The whole away goals thing, it serves its purpose, and that it incentivises teams away to go and attack, which is the point of the rule in the first place, and that's what it did. And it's like we said, it's totally changed the tie. Put us now, you probably say now that looking at things maybe give us a 65% chance, whereas at 1-0 you'd maybe give a 60% chance to them.
Yeah. I mean, because they've got to come and score at Celtic Park, which means they've got to open up. You'd like to think it's Celtic. I mean, they couldn't cope with Roberts on their own park. You'd like to think at Celtic Park, Roberts will excel to an even higher standard, and that they will have even greater difficulty coping with Roberts.
Yeah, not to mention.
Obviously, I think tonight Celtic have added Toure to as the wild card to the Champions League squad, so we've got Toure to get in the team, and you'd like to think that Sviatchenko might be fit, and that Ayer would be fit, who all appear to, those three you would think are ahead of Effie and O'Connell, although we've said O'Connell made the mistake, but I do agree with Michael Stewart. Apart from the mistake at their goal, I thought he had a great game.
Yeah, and I mean, after I'm not sure if you picked up on it, but some people who may be listening will have. When I wrote about the Celtic-Wolfsburg game, and probably in a bit of an overboard way, raved about O'Connell, because I think last time I was on and I spoke to you about, we need a centre-back who can play on the left side, who can play out the ball, and O'Connell does that so well. He's a confident passer of the ball as much as anything else, and he looks like a decent defender. Rodgers has said that, he wants to defend, but that he's an intelligent player and his passing is really good, and it's probably the best out of all the defenders we've got just now.
I mean, you mentioned the Wolfsburg game, and the Wolfsburg game is a good thing to talk about as well, in that we played two completely separate, with the exception of Ayer, who came on as a substitute in the first half.
Yeah,
we played two completely different 11s in both halves of that game. So we played 21 players, of which 20, because Fassan is not a first team player, but 20 are players who, if they started any game in the league this season, you would not be surprised. You would consider them first team players.
Yeah.
So that's 20 first team players, and not playing against Wolfsburg were Boyata, Simonovic, Commons, Johansson, Beaton, I can't remember those, somebody else. So that's 27 players that you would consider first team players, of which Sviatchenko, Effie, O'Connell, Ayer, Boyata, Simonovic. Have I missed one out? And now we've got Toure. So we've got 7 people in the squad who you consider to be first team players, or they would consider themselves to want to be first team players, for the centre half positions.
Well, Lustig as well.
Oh, and Lustig as well, yep. So that's 8 players who we consider to be, they could play centre-half.
I've got an idea.
And people were complaining that we didn't sign more.
Yeah, we should definitely sign one. Yeah, I mean, why don't we sign a centre-back? I mean, we've only got 8.
Yeah, exactly. We've only got 8 centre-halves. Let's, for 2 positions, possibly 3 if we play a 3 at the back.
Yeah, I mean, 9 or 10, you would think at least 9 or 10 players for 2 positions.
Yeah, I mean, all that's going to happen is then in a couple of weeks' time, people are going to say, why have we got all these centre-halves? We signed Simonovic for 5 million and he's hardly played. Boyata's a Belgian on the fringes of the Belgian international team.
Yeah, well,
it's what it is. People can criticise the board for many things. I don't think the board have let Brendan Rodgers down by the fact that we played Effie and O'Connell tonight. We've got 8 centre-halves.
The only case that can be made is, and we don't necessarily know the ins and outs, but it would have been good to maybe have Toure in a couple of weeks earlier. But we've signed a defender, and we certainly don't need any more than one because, like we've just said, there's a lot of options there. So it's just one of these things where you've got so many injuries, but when you've got a lot of injuries in a position that you're already got a lot of players in, the answer isn't to go and buy more. It's to rely on the guys that you've already bought or brought through your youth system and rely on the manager to get the best out of them.
But your point about bringing in Toure earlier, that the biggest challenge that I can see at the moment in the transfer market must be the money that's sloshing about England. So Virgil van Dijk was still at Celtic this time last year. His salary at Celtic this time last year was $8,000. We offered him a pay rise to £20,000 to stay, but he wanted to leave, and he went to Southampton to go to £40,000.
Yeah.
A clause in his contract kicked in with the new TV contract, so this season he will earn £80,000 a week.
If not more, because...
No, it's definitely 80. I know it is £80,000.
Well, I was going to say because he signed... it wasn't even just that, but he actually signed a new contract. He signed a 6-year contract, clearly because they're looking to tie him up for a long time. But he's got 6 years now on his deal, and like you say, he's earning 10 times what he was earning a year ago at Celtic.
12 months ago. So, and Fraser Forster's on 80 as well.
Yeah.
So, a guy... So the problem then is that level of money starts to get talked about by agents, so they know that that's the type of money. Championship clubs are now, because it's starting to trickle down, because obviously Premiership signed from the Championship, etc., and obviously they want to get into the £100 million for finishing bottom league. Championship clubs are now starting to offer people 40, 50 grand a week to play in the English Championship.
Yeah. So yeah, and even just if you consider that, if we assume that he never had any offers, which he almost definitely did from down south, just the wage that he was coming from at Liverpool to what he'd be getting offered here is going to be huge. So,
I mean, if you want to sign someone who's been released from Accrington Stanley, well, obviously that guy's desperate for a club because he's just been released by Accrington Stanley. So you can get that type of player. You could sign 9 of those types of players if you want. But we've got 50,000 players in our first team squad. We don't need to sign more of the same standard.
The thing is, people complain when we don't sign any players, and people complain when we sign too many players that aren't good enough. But if you want the really good players, then sometimes it just takes some time.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon you could hire a minibus to take half the first team away, and you wouldn't see any, unless we got some bout of gastroenteritis going around the squad, you wouldn't see any detrimental impact. You probably wouldn't notice.
No, I know. The squad is huge, and so people, I mean, I've heard people saying, "Oh, yeah, no, we maybe need 4 or 5 players," and I think if we sign 4 or 5 players, we're going to need to build a bigger dressing room.
Well, we've signed Toure, we've signed Dembele, we've signed Ayer, and we are still trying to sign Scott Sinclair and Bamford. That's 5 players. And so the Sinclair thing, the agent was told when he said that the player wanted to leave and not play in the Championship, the player was told if Villa got their money back, he could go. So Celtic offered them their money back and Villa turned around, which was 2.25 million, I think. And Villa said, no, we want 4. So then I think what's been happening since then is everybody's been wanting to move the least. Because obviously if Celtic then suddenly go to 3, Villa are going to sit there and go, well, we'll just wait till 4. So Celtic are not wanting to move much. Villa are not wanting to come from 4 down to 3 because then Celtic will sit there and go, we're not changed because they're going to come down. So I think there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
Meantime, I think we need to get a bus in and get 10, 12 players out the door.
Yeah, well, there's definitely just too many. Even before you look at the
Mackay
level
Steven,
of players.
he was one of the other players who, when I talked about, and there was 7 players not there. Mackay Steven was another one.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's guys that maybe, like, if you look back 12, 13 months ago, getting into the qualifiers last season, Gary Mackay-Steven was a bit of a first-team pick, and now we don't even remember him in the squad.
Yeah.
That just shows the size of the squad. There's definitely, like Roger said when he came in, I maybe want 21, 22 players, and then if we want to bring youth players in, then we've got that capability. But
well, I remember going to a fans forum thing in Ronnie Dyer's first season, 6 months in, and somebody said, Ronnie, have we got any good youngsters coming through? And Ronnie did the diplomatic thing of, oh yes, we've got some great young players, and then only identified one, and it was Kieran Tierney. And he said, so this is before Tierney had played a first team game, I think, or if he had played one. He said, Tierney can be as good as he wants to be. Now, I understand that the next player that people are talking a bit like that and that Brendan Rodgers has been most impressed with out of the youth players is Ralston, the right back.
Yeah, who came into the squad at the end of last season as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was involved, but like you say, guys like that, Ralston, the only reason O'Connell's getting a game is because the first 5 guys are injured.
Yeah, and it's that thing of, as fans, we all like the concept of we've signed a player and it's exciting, it's sexy. Equally, Celtic fans do want to see our own young players coming through. So I suppose it's a balance. Do we want to go out and sign players, or do we want our players coming through? Because if you go and sign players, I mean, that's why I actually like the concept of signing someone like Toure, because we've got Simonovic and Boyata as 2 centre-halves. Now, okay, people might say, well, I've seen Boyata and he's not got it. But the fact he's on the fringes of the Belgian squad, people patently think there's a player there that could become a player.
Yeah.
And then Simonovic, well, we've hardly seen him at all. Was it 11 games in total or something he's played for Celtic?
It's something very small anyway. So yeah, there's 2 guys there.
And he's a Croatian under-21. We paid up to £5 million for him, depending on where you're at. So I actually like the idea of you bringing a guy who's experienced, who's been at the very top level, who his experience might be invaluable to come in, but he's not going to play every week, and he's not going to be blocking for Simonovic and Boyata.
Yeah, he adds a lot to the squad in terms of experience. He's a good short-term fix if we have any early problems under Rodgers, but he's not going to hamper the long-term role of the other guys that we've got and that we've paid a lot of money for.
Do you see anywhere for Commons and Johansson in this team?
No. I mean, I was going to elaborate on that, but not really. No. I mean, Commons. I think Commons. I was never one of the people who said, "Oh, Dyla, you need to get him in the team." I thought he's got qualities, but the qualities that he has are lessening just because he's age, so he's not quite as sharp. He maybe just doesn't have the same first yard that maybe gets him away from a guy, even though he's never been quick over distance. But he might have a quick yard or anything like that. Those are lessening, and the defensive side of his game is just non-existent. And as for Johansson, I think it's pretty clear that Johansson's Johansson's would rather be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the thing I always thought with Johansson was that you can't ever play him and Scott Brown together because they've got almost identical strengths and weaknesses, and you've got the guys with the same weaknesses. So there's two, there's something, so for example, the two of them, neither of them are very good passers of the ball. Mm-hmm. So you need to accommodate for that. If you're going to be playing a midfield three, you need to accommodate for that elsewhere. So Armstrong and McGregor are quite good passers, particularly McGregor. But Johansson and Brown are two guys that are so similar, you can't have them in the same team. And we all know that Brown's not going to be the one to suffer.
Talking of Brown, you're too young to remember this. I can remember the Celtic support suddenly deciding that Roy Aitken was past it. Now, he was making mistakes, and Aitken would sometimes play centre, a bit like Mialbi in his day. Sometimes he would play centre half, sometimes he would play didn't quite have the concept of people talking about holding midfield players or sitting midfield players or defensive midfield players. He either played in midfield or centre defence. But people then suddenly decided that Roy Aitken was not good enough. And it got to the point where even if Roy Aitken was having a good game, he could have 12 good passes in a row and nobody would say anything, and then his 13th pass would be a misplaced pass and everyone would just get on his back.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit concerned that that's starting to be the case with Scott. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying people are wrong or right, I'm just commenting. I'm getting that that's starting to be the case with Scott Brown.
Yeah. When you say that, and like you said, Roy Aitken's maybe a bit before my time, but it sounds a lot like what we have with Ambrose, where the guy, people have this negative opinion of Ambrose, and the same goes for Brown, and that is what's in people's heads. So it's like the whole thing of one of the things that our brain just does wrong is confirmation bias.
Yes.
Where we are trained, or not trained, but our brain does the things, only picks up on the information that goes in line with what we already think. So everyone, you're thinking, Brown, he's getting past it. So even if he does, like you say, 12 things right, the 13th thing's bad, people will only remember the bad. In the same way, I think when we were talking about Commons there, that goes the opposite way, where people still think, Commons is great. So he gives the ball away, he doesn't track his runner, and then he creates one chance and people go, but look at that, like he created that chance. So yeah, I think that might be a factor with Brown, that people have got this idea in their head that Brown passed it, and so whether he plays well or not, people aren't, unless he's exceptional, people aren't going to pick up on it. I think he still has a role in the team. I think we've always known that Brown is limited in some aspects, but he's without a doubt got a place in the team as it stands. And maybe looking into next season and beyond, we should look for someone else. And maybe Brown can play a lessening role as time goes on. Obviously, he's got his injury issues and everything like that, so his body might not hold up as long as an average player. But as the squad stands just now, Brown should be in the team. And if we can get him in a role that gets the best out of him, then excellent.
So you're for keeping Brown. You'd sell Johansson. Any particular position that you think we really need? I read someone tonight talking about what the game tonight demonstrated was we still need somebody creative in the middle of the park.
I think people have been saying that about Celtic since Nakamura. From what I can remember, people seem to say that. I can't remember the last time people weren't saying that. So I'm not sure if that's just maybe one of these things that people will always think that irrelevant what of the truth is. I think for me, you need someone creative in the middle of the park. We've got guys who, if need be, we can bring in that maybe won't offer so much defensively as, say, Armstrong, but will be more of a threat. So guys like Rogic or Scott Allen, they are creative midfielders. Now, they're not excellent defensively, but if there was a creative midfielder out there who was excellent defensively and was really good in the attack, then he probably wouldn't be coming to Celtic anyway, because those guys are the most wanted guys in football.
So, being through the team, there's two things coming up. We've got the Barcelona game on Saturday, and then we've got this return leg on Wednesday. So first up, who would you not play against Barcelona at the weekend?
I would keep the team. I think what he's been doing with the friendlies is sort of playing his team for maybe half or maybe even an hour. So I would get the team that were as close as possible to what we're going for on next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then see what make the changes after that, because obviously the idea is that he doesn't want to tire them out before an important game in a friendly. So there's one or two things he could try. I mean, I have to say tonight and in the games in the past, there's clearly a player there, but Dembele hasn't, he's flattered to deceive a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he could try something different. He might want to change the formation. Like I spoke about how, we went to the 4-5-1 and that was more successful tonight. So he might want to start with that next week, in which case maybe someone like Forrest would come in for Dembele, or, a change of shape or something like that. He might want to not play Roberts because he took a bit of a kicking tonight.
Yep.
And, just to keep him fresh, because he is, without a doubt, and I was going to say our most dangerous attacker, but he is the most dangerous player in any team in Scotland, quite comfortably. And
I think he's now starting to illustrate why we couldn't afford them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, laughably, last night I saw someone on Twitter say that Barry Mackay was superior to Patrick Roberts, which I thought was...
Was it Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles? It was
I'm not quite sure, but I think they would have offered about as much insight as this guy. I saw that and I thought, the boy's done quite well, but let's not kid ourselves. Roberts is one of the top 3 or 4 players in the best team in the country. So, and I mean, at the age he is, 19, maybe 20 years old, the threat he offers is excellent. And I've seen a lot of Manchester City fans who have said, I can't believe Roberts is still at Celtic. We should have him here with Guardiola, train him to go into the first team within the year. That shows how well regarded he is there. So maybe protect him, because he is, or certainly going forward, our most valuable asset. And I would put him over Griffiths in that regard, which that might not be popular, but I really do think that. So maybe rest Roberts, maybe try out a formation. He's looking like Toure is going to come in, so maybe for O'Connell or Ambrose, depending on what he thinks. I think those are the options, and then obviously just use the squad in the second half, really.
Okay, so then what's the return leg score going to be, and what's the team going to be for that game?
Well, I'll defer until after the Barcelona game to predict a team for Astana, because, like I said, there could be a formation change. I wouldn't imagine it'll be much different. Good chance Toure will come in.
Do you think this system of 3-5-2 / 4-4-2 in defence, do you think that's going to be principally our system under Brendan?
What I know from his time, and having watched him at Liverpool, having spoken to Liverpool fans and general English football watchers, is that Rodgers tends to find a system and stick to it until it stops working, and then he just changes his system. So we'll probably see it, and then there'll come a time when teams start to figure it out, and he'll move to something else. When, like I spoke last time about how through his time at Liverpool, he had excellent spells where, like, for example, in his... not the season where he left, not last season where he left halfway through, but the season before that, and they didn't start well, and then he changed to a 6-1 basically, and they had an excellent run, and then Man United figured that out, and then he changed. So that seems to be his approach. So I would expect we'll see this for a while, and then maybe whatever else fits the players' capabilities, it'll shift to something else and pose teams a different problem.
So I interrupted. What would you go for? What do you think the score will be next week?
What will the score be? I'll be optimistic and say that we'll win something 2-1 or 3-1. I think having looked at their games from last season and the last round, and tonight or this afternoon even, they score goals from set pieces, and it doesn't seem to matter who the manager is. But in Neil Lennon's last season, we conceded a lot of goals from corners. In Ronnie Dyler's last season, we conceded a lot of goals from corners, and we're at it again tonight. So I wouldn't be surprised if they scored, but I've got faith that the guys that we've got will be more than enough to get us through into the next round and guarantee us a group stage of some form.
Do you think, without taking the podcast on too long, just you saying about under Lennon and under Dyler, we lost goals at corners. Fraser Foster didn't like coming off his line, despite being 6'7". Fraser Foster rarely came for corners. And we've talked about Craig Gordon actually can be quite bad for decision making on coming for corners. Do you think part of the thing about losing goals is there's quite a few times we lose goals when the ball's at the edge, the crosses come into the 6-yard box? Do you think it could be anything to do with the fact that we the last two keepers haven't been coming for cross or aren't that great?
It's something we've got to consider, because it's a problem that stretches across 3 different managers, across countless defensive combinations. You think through that time, Lennon's last season, it was Van Dijk and Ambrose. Then under Dyler, it was Van Dijk and Denier. And then it was Van Dijk and Boyata before Van Dijk left. Like in Malmo, we conceded 3 goals over 2 games against Malmo. That was Van Dijk and Boyata. And then we've had Boyata and Sviatchenko and Simunovic and Mulgrew, all combinations of that last season. And then it's now O'Connell and Ambrose, or whoever it's going to be this year.
In defence of that, I would say we had our best defensive record in over 100 years with Van Dijk and Denier.
That's a good point. We didn't concede many goals at all that season
in Ronnie's first season.
Yeah, but we can't be shocked that, like you say, we had a good record, and that we even just particularly from set pieces, because Forster, Van Dijk, and Denier, I think, must be the best goalkeeper and defence and centre half group that has been in Scotland that I can remember.
And then I thought we were much better at set pieces after Sviatchenko came in the team at the second half of last season. Granted, we weren't playing European football, so you're not tested at a higher level than Scottish football. But
yeah, Sviatchenko, despite being not a big guy, I think he's 5'10" or 5'11".
I think he's an organiser.
He's strong in there. Like, we've seen that with the goal that he scored in the semi-final. A lot of neck power, and he's a good header of the ball. But like, going back to the goalkeeper thing, I think that's definitely got to be something that we've to consider, because when it's an issue that keeps on rearing its head across different managers, different defences, then maybe, and throughout that time we've used zonal and man, and it's been an issue with both.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe the goalkeeper thing is the issue, or a big factor anyway.
Okay, so back on to next week. So everybody can put their house on us winning 3-1. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's Celtic and both teams to score is that's where the money is. I'll regret that when we have to do a somber podcast in a couple of weeks.
Well, maybe not do a somber podcast, because my plan had been to do the top 10 podcast and have 2 or 3 people on discussing our 10 players of the season. But I thought I needed to get a podcast done on the back of that game last night, or tonight. Or today, I should say. I just felt... Well, for a start, one of the things I did feel is the online Celtic fans on Twitter were being so negative during the game when actually we were playing away from home with a new manager is trying to develop the team and enhance the team, and our not first choice centre half pairing. They weren't getting chance after chance after chance. We were playing away from home on an AstroTurf pitch 3,000 miles away against a team who were in the Champions League group stages last season, and we weren't.
Yeah, all things considered, we were weakened squad wise. We were so far away. The trip. They are a strong team. When you look at their, we went over there and we got a draw, but so did last season the Champions League finalists, Atletico Madrid. One of the top 3 teams in Europe went there and they got a draw.
Yeah,
as did Benfica and Galatasaray. So a draw is a good result, and the game was, I would say, in the balance. Really, it was pretty 50-50, and all things considered, particularly how far the trip was. And how early it is in the season. That's something we haven't even mentioned. They're right in the centre of their season.
Yeah.
Whereas we are.
And that's one of the things I'd heard about Brendan Rodgers. He's been pleasantly surprised by the quality of facilities at Celtic, that it's on a par with many English Premiership teams. Pleasantly surprised by the quality of the players. What he's particularly refreshed by is they may be good quality players in the English Premiership, but they are prima donnas who have a fortune, who don't take kindly to being told what to do. And the players are much prepared to listen to the manager, getting back to the point we've discussed before about he arrives at Celtic with gravitas, so they're more likely to do what he's asked them to do. The one thing that he apparently has commented is, see, no matter what you criticise them for, at the very top level, the guys who are earning 60 to 100 to 300,000 pounds a week, those guys come back from pre-season exactly the same level of fitness that they finished their last season.
Yeah.
Whereas, whilst the Celtic players are certainly not coming back like 70s players who, 2 stone overweight or whatever, they are maybe their fitness is down 20% on where their peak fitness will be.
Yeah.
And you might criticise, but then, do you know what? I don't think people are born footballers. I think it's through dedication and ability. So if the Celtic players are 80% of the quality of English Premiership players, then it's, in terms of technical ability, and that's down to how much you've worked on your game, then it's reasonable to expect that they would also be 20% down in terms of fitness. Yeah,
because it's the same thing. It's just about application and...
Yep.
Absolutely agree with that.
And that's the reason why they're at Celtic on 10, 15 grand a week and not at Liverpool at 150 grand a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that. So getting back to your point of these guys in the middle of the season, and whilst it's not an excuse for the Lincoln Imps result or whatever, because they were at the same point in the season, it is a factor to take into consideration about, we will get better from here.
Yeah. Absolutely, and especially the fact that not only are we just in, but the new manager who's constantly said, we're going to improve because my ideas are only just getting across just now.
Yeah, so we are going to win according to you on Wednesday 3-1, so we're going to go through the next round, which means if we get through the next round, we are guaranteed European football till Christmas, I think, because even if we were to get knocked out, we'd drop into the group stage of Europa League, but hopefully we can get through and we're in the group stage of the Champions League, and that would just be fantastic. To get to that level. So, good positive podcast, and the next podcast will be talking about the top 10, so we'll have to review last season, but good result today. You pleased with the result, pleased with the performance?
Yeah, it was satisfactory at the very least, so good position to be in getting into next week.
Excellent. Well, I will speak to you later.
Speak to you later on.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed that chat with Jack, covering most aspects of the game, I think, and let's see if his prediction for next week's score is correct. I quite like the 3 to Celtic bit, even more relaxing if it's not the 1 to Astana part. Anyway, As I said at the beginning, if you want to get your new music on the podcast, this is Easy Signals. Their stuff, more information on them is on the website. If you want your new music on, if you email podcasts at celticunderground.net, that's podcasts at celticunderground.net. As I say in the podcast, we were going to have the Celtic Underground Top 10 podcast. Decided to stick this one in, so the Top 10 podcast will be the next one with new music from Misha Northern Penguin. They are a Norwegian-based band, and get your stuff in. If you want your Celtic story in, audio file, whichever way, shape or form, with your new music, get it in a SoundCloud, YouTube, Amazon, iTunes link, or a Dropbox file, whatever it is. If you want your Celtic story of the Celtic game you did make, was the most important in your life, emotional in your life, whatever it is, send an audio file or even jot it down, and we'll narrate it and get it on. Get it all to, or any ideas for a podcast, for a guest, whatever you want, get it to podcasts at celticunderground.net. That's podcasts at celticunderground.net. Obviously, there's excellent work that the Foundation are doing. Anybody can help the Foundation. You don't have to specifically attend a Foundation event. You can be raising money for charity yourself, do a charitable event, and have the Celtic FC Foundation as your chosen charity. Just get online and you'll see instructions of how to do that. Anyway, as I say, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hope you're enjoying the new music we're sticking on the podcast this week from Easy Signals. Go on the website, you'll get more about them. I'll leave them to play out with a couple of songs. And this is me, Harry Brady, saying good night and God bless. Good night.